Welcome back, photographers. Today, I'm going to discuss one of my favorite things to photograph, the Milky Way. Now, I just returned from a trip to Joshua Tree National Park where I spent 3 evenings shooting the Milky Way, and I got some pics I'm very happy with. Now, I'm going to use this video to outline the steps you can take to get some great Milky Way shots of your own. Now, before I get started, if you are new here, please click the subscribe button and the bell icon to get notifications when new videos become available. I'm Ted, and this is stuff you might like, so let's get started. Now, to get a great Milky Way shot requires planning and timing. In the Northern Hemisphere, the Milky Way is best viewed in the months of April through November. And in those months, the best time to view the Milky Way is as close to a new moon as possible. Your best bet to determine when a new moon occurs is to use an app. Now, I use the Photopill app. That can give you the moon phase for any location. I'll have a link to it down below. It's available for both iOS and Android, and it has a number of tools that makes it much easier to get a great Milky Way shot. I highly recommend using it. It's almost indispensable. You will want the night sky to be as free from the moonlight and light pollution as possible. To that end, you want to make sure that you are in a dark sky area. This is an area that is devoid of any light pollution. You can check to see if any area qualifies as a dark sky location by checking it on the website darksky.org. Once you've determined the when and the where, you'll want to scout out a good location that will offer you a view of the night sky, along with some foreground elements to make your photo interesting. These can be trees, rock formations, a house, a dock, anything really. It's best to determine your location in daylight because trying to compose a photo in near darkness is difficult at best. Once you've picked your location, you will want to use the Photopill app and the Night AR feature to try and visualize where the Milky Way will be and at what time. The Milky Way rotates throughout the night sky and will have a drastically different location hours apart. Using Night AR allows you to see exactly where in your composition it will be and how it will move through the night sky throughout the evening. Once you've gotten your location picked and you know what time the Milky Way will be in your frame, you will want to get your camera set up to handle taking the actual photo. Now, camera gear is highly subjective, but to shoot the Milky Way, you will need a strong and sturdy tripod. If you're traveling to your photo location and can't bring a full-size tripod, I'd suggest renting one. When I travel, I rent the Peak Design travel tripod from Aperture Rent. Aperture Rent isn't a sponsor, but I've used them for 10 years and they have a great selection of rental gear at great rates. The Peak Design travel tripod folds down to be small enough to pack inside a small suitcase or a photo backpack. It's incredibly strong and sturdy and very easy to set up. A flashlight and headlamp is also a must. I recommend a headlamp with varying light power and a red and green filter. I'll post a link down below for the one I use from Amazon. It cost me about 15 bucks. Now, obviously, you're going to need a camera and a wide-angle lens, preferably. One with a fast maximum aperture. Anything faster than f2.8 will be good, and anything slower than f2.8 will require longer exposures and/or higher ISOs, which will make your photo noisy or could possibly result in star trails. And the most important tool you will need is patience. To dial in your exposure, you'll use the 500 rule. This rule attempts to give you your shutter speed by dividing your lens focal length into 500. For example, 500 divided by a 20mm lens on full frame gives you 25 seconds, which is what you will use for your shutter speed. With a shutter speed of 25 and an aperture of f1.4 and an ISO of 3200, I was able to get a good exposure of the Milky Way. A note about shutter speeds though. The longer the shutter speed, the more likely you will get star trails in your photos. Generally, anything 25 seconds or less should have minimal to no star trails. As you approach 30 seconds and longer, star trails will become more pronounced. Perhaps the most difficult task of taking a Milky Way shot is getting focus nailed. While you could use autofocus, most cameras in autofocus mode will try to constantly adjust focus, and that will result in you focusing on something in your frame that you didn't want to focus on. The best strategy is to set your camera to manual focus mode. Then, using your focus ring, turn the lens to the infinity focus setting. On older cameras or lenses, this will be a marker on the lens itself. Many new lenses and older lenses are notorious for not having infinity properly calibrated. To get around this, use your viewfinder to punch in or zoom in on your frame and look at the brightest star in the sky. Turn the lens until the star is completely in focus. Take a shot with your settings, zoom into the star, and check your focus. The other benefit of using manual focus is once you've set your focus for a particular composition, you shouldn't have to refocus unless you accidentally turn the focus ring or bump the camera. Once you've gotten your focus and your exposure set, it's time to take the shot. To reduce the possibility of pressing the shutter button causing camera shake, I recommend setting your self timer to 2 seconds. Make sure all your external illumination is turned off and not to touch the camera while it is exposing with the shutter open. Once your shot is taken, review it using the back of the camera and zoom into the stars to ensure that they are in focus. If they look streaky, you'll want to reduce your shutter speed. You will need to increase your aperture or ISO to compensate if you do this though. Now there's one other camera setting that you may want to tweak. Many cameras have a long exposure noise reduction or NR setting. The NR stands for noise reduction obviously. And basically what this means is that when you are doing a long exposure, many camera sensors will tend to introduce a lot of noise into the frame. To minimize this, the setting long exposure NR takes a few sensor readings after your long exposure is done, and it uses those to even out or minimize the noise in the shot. If you're only taking a single frame, having this enabled can help your images with noise. But if you're taking shots that will be turned into a time lapse after the fact, you will want to have this setting disabled. When it's enabled, the setting adds extra time to processing, and in the case of shooting a time lapse, you want to be able to take the next shot as quickly as possible. I'll cover the ins and outs of shooting the Milky Way time lapse in another video. You may notice while shooting that your night sky is exposed well, but your foreground elements are near black. You can recover a good bit of detail in modern cameras in post by bringing up the shadows. But another technique is to use a flashlight or your headlamp to briefly illuminate your foreground elements, which will result in them being brighter than your background elements in your picture. Experiment with brief flashes of light focused on your subject at varying brightnesses to achieve the desired effect. Once you've gotten your shots, you might be saying to yourself that these Milky Way shots look bland and boring and the Milky Way itself isn't very prominent. Well, that's where post-processing comes in. I'll have another video that walks you through the best way to process your images coming up soon. So that's my steps for getting a great shot of the Milky Way. Let me know what you think down below in the comments, and if you like this video, please click the thumbs up. And if you didn't, well, you can let me know why not down below in the comments. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.